Sorry, Katie. We'll have to cancel the zoo trip tomorrow. Your grandpa's back is acting up again. Mom's voice crackled through my phone speaker as I watched my 8-year-old daughter's face crumble for the 5th time this year. My son, Ethan, only 6, had already walked away when he heard the ringtone, having learned not to get his hopes up. It's fine, Mom. The kids will understand, I lied, turning away so they wouldn't see my expression. Through the kitchen window, I could see the backpack Emma had packed last night, stuffed with her notebook for recording animal facts and the disposable camera she'd saved her allowance to buy. 3 hours later, my sister Melissa posted photos on social media. Mom and Dad at the county fair with my niece and nephew, all smiles on the carousel. The timestamp showed they'd left for the fair less than an hour after canceling on us. Again, I'd been the family pleaser for 35 years. The responsible one, the reasonable one, the one who understood when plans changed. When Melissa needed something, the world stopped spinning to accommodate her. When I needed something, there was always an excuse. Bad timing, tight finances, prior commitments. But seeing those photos, something inside me finally snapped. The pattern had started small. A canceled movie here, a forgotten birthday there. My parents would promise my kids a trip to the ice cream shop after school, then text that something came up. Meanwhile, my sister's children enjoyed consistent grandparent time, weekend sleepovers, shopping sprees, and surprise visits with presents. My husband Derek noticed it first. Babe, don't you think it's weird that your parents canceled Ethan's baseball game, but they made it to Melissa's kids' soccer practice the same day? His observation stung because it confirmed what I'd been ignoring. They're just busy, I defended weakly. Mom said Dad wasn't feeling great. Derek just raised an eyebrow. They posted pictures having lunch at that new place downtown an hour later. I'd spent years making excuses for them. Maybe they were just more comfortable with Melissa's kids. Maybe my sister needed more help than I did. Maybe my children were somehow harder to manage. I tied myself in knots trying to understand why my parents treated their grandchildren so differently. For my kids' sake, I kept trying. Each disappointment, I'd comfort them with alternatives. We'll have our own special day instead. But children aren't stupid. Emma started asking pointed questions. Why does Grandma never cancel on Cousin Mia? Ethan grew quieter, learning to expect nothing. After that day of the fake back pain and fair photos, I stopped answering my parents' calls for a week. When I finally picked up, Mom acted like nothing had happened. We're planning a trip to Whispering Pines Camping Resort next month, she chirped. We thought the kids might like to come along. Melissa's bringing Noah and Mia. My throat tightened. The last 5 plans you've made with my kids, you've canceled. Oh, Katie, don't exaggerate. We've been very busy with your father's doctor appointments. Busy at the fair, I muttered. What was that? Nothing. I swallowed my anger like always. When is this camping trip? The weekend of the 15th. We'll pick the kids up Friday after school. I marked it on the calendar, but didn't tell Katie or Ethan. No more disappointed faces if it fell through. But in a moment of weakness, when Katie found the brochure I'd printed about the resort's nature center, I confirmed they might be going with their grandparents. Her eyes lit up in a way that made my chest hurt. The day before the trip, right on schedule, Mom called. Katie, I hate to do this, but we'll have to reschedule the camping trip. Your father's colleague invited us to their lake house, and it was just too good to pass up. I closed my eyes, phone pressed to my ear. Will Melissa's kids still be going to the lake house? A beat of silence. Well, yes. Noah and Mia are already expecting it, and you know how Melissa gets when they're disappointed. Something in me went very still. And my kids' disappointment doesn't matter? Don't be dramatic. We'll take them another time. No, you won't, I said quietly. This is the last time you make a promise to my children that you don't intend to keep. Katie, what's gotten into you? If you're going to be ungrateful. I hung up. Then I booked a cabin at Whispering Pines for just the 4 of us, spending money we'd been saving for new kitchen appliances. When I told the kids, they were cautiously excited, having learned to temper their expectations. Are you sure we're really going? Katie asked, her little face serious. Absolutely, I promised. No matter what. We had a wonderful weekend, hiking, making s'mores, identifying birds with a guidebook Derek had bought. Not once did the kids mention their grandparents. Sunday night, as we drove home with two exhausted children sleeping in the back seat, my phone buzzed with texts from my mother. Your father and I stopped by your house Friday evening. Where were you? Why aren't you answering? We wanted to surprise the kids with gifts from our trip. Katie, this is childish. Call me back. I didn't tell them we were going, I confessed to Derek. I just didn't want to deal with their judgment. He squeezed my hand. You don't owe them explanations. But the texts kept coming through the next week. Melissa says you've been ignoring our calls. The kids are invited to Noah's birthday party on Saturday. It would look bad if they didn't come. Dutifully, I took Emma and Ethan to my nephew's party. My parents were there, of course, playing the devoted grandparents to perfection. Mom cornered me by the punch bowl. I don't understand why you're giving us the cold shoulder, she said, her voice low. We've done nothing but try to include your family. I stirred my drink slowly. When was the last time you followed through on plans with my kids? We're very busy people, Katie. You've always been so independent. We didn't think you needed us the way Melissa does. My children need their grandparents just as much as Melissa's do. The words came out sharper than intended. Mom's face hardened. You've always been jealous of your sister. Even as a kid, you were so competitive. This isn't about me and Melissa. It's about Katie and Ethan constantly being treated as less important than their cousins. That's absurd. We love all our grandchildren equally. Love isn't just words, Mom. It's showing up. She bristled. You're being ridiculous. Ask anyone here. We're wonderful grandparents. To two of your grandchildren, yes. Before she could respond, Dad joined us, all smiles for the benefit of other guests. Everything okay here? Fine, I said, plastering on a fake smile. I was just telling Mom that we won't be available for any more last-minute plans. If you want to see the kids, you'll need to commit at least a week in advance and actually follow through. My father's usual charming expression faltered. Now, Katie, that's not very flexible of you. It's not flexible of you to consistently cancel on my children while never missing an event with Melissa's kids. That's different, he protested. How? The question hung in the air. Neither of them had an answer. I think your mother and I have been more than generous with our time, Dad finally said, his tone cooling. If you're going to set conditions on when we can see our grandchildren, maybe we should take a step back altogether. It was the exact response I expected, turning it around to make me the unreasonable one. I nodded slowly. If that's your choice. For the rest of the party, they avoided me, instead fawning over Noah, the birthday boy, and Mia, who followed her grandparents around like a shadow. My children played with their cousins but kept glancing at me, sensing the tension. On the drive home, Katie asked, Are Grandma and Grandpa mad at us? No, sweetie. They're mad at me because I told them they can't keep breaking promises to you. It's okay, Mom, Ethan said from the back seat, his voice small. We don't need to go places with them. His acceptance broke my heart. Children shouldn't have to get used to being an afterthought. For 2 months, we operated under a new normal. My parents sent birthday cards with checks, but made no effort to visit. They still saw Melissa's family weekly. I stopped checking social media to avoid the evidence of their continued favoritism. Then came Thanksgiving. Traditionally, we gathered at my parents' house in Cedar Hills, but this year I decided we'd stay home. Aren't we going to Grandma's? Katie asked, noticing I hadn't started packing their overnight bags. Not this year. We're having our own Thanksgiving dinner. Derek backed me completely, inviting his brother's family to join us instead. I sent my parents a polite text saying we had other plans this year, ignoring the guilt that gnawed at me. Breaking tradition felt both terrifying and liberating. My phone rang almost immediately after I sent the text. My mother, voice tight with anger. What do you mean you're not coming for Thanksgiving? The whole family will be here. We've made other plans. You can't just create your own holiday plans. Thanksgiving is a family occasion. We'll be with family, just not at your house. There was a long pause. This is about the camping trip, isn't it? You're still punishing us for that? I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting my children from being constantly disappointed. Your father's feelings are very hurt. After everything we've done for you, I cut her off. What exactly have you done for my children lately, Mom? Can you name one promise you've kept to them this year? The silence was damning. Melissa says you're turning the kids against us, she finally said. I've never said a negative word about you to them. Unlike you, I don't use children as pawns. What is that supposed to mean? It means I've heard you telling Mia and Noah they're your special grandchildren. It means I've seen the different gifts, the different treatment, the different priorities. If that's how you feel, maybe it's better you don't come for Thanksgiving. My thoughts exactly. After I hung up, I sat on my bed, shaking. I'd spent my whole life seeking my parents' approval, and cutting that cord felt like free falling. But for the first time in years, I also felt clean, honest, unburdened by the constant need to pretend everything was fine. Thanksgiving at our house was lovely, simple, warm, and drama-free. Derek's brother brought his 2 kids, and our children spent the day playing with their cousins without the undercurrent of favoritism that poisoned gatherings at my parents' house. My sister called the next day, furious. How could you do this to Mom and Dad? They were upset all day. Did they tell you why I'm keeping my distance? They said you're being paranoid, claiming they favor my kids. That's ridiculous, Katie. Is it? When was the last time they canceled plans with Noah and Mia? Melissa paused. They're reliable with my kids because I don't make it difficult for them. And I do? You've always been so particular. If they're 5 minutes late, you get an attitude. If they bring the wrong snacks, you make comments. That's not true, and you know it. They've canceled on my kids 17 times in the past year. I've counted. They've never once canceled on yours. Maybe they just enjoy being around my kids more, she snapped. Have you considered that you're raising entitled children who aren't pleasant to be around? The remark stung like a slap. Don't you dare bring my children into this. If you can't see the double standard, you're as blind as they are. This conversation is pointless. Just know that you're breaking Mom's heart. After she hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, tracing the wood grain with my finger. The familiar guilt started to creep in, the voice telling me I was overreacting, being too sensitive, making a big deal out of nothing. But then I remembered Katie's face every time her grandparents canceled, Ethan's quiet resignation, and I knew I wasn't wrong. Christmas approached, bringing fresh tension. My parents sent elaborate gifts to my house for the kids with a note, "We miss you. Let's put this silly disagreement behind us." I returned the packages unopened with a note of my own. This isn't about gifts. It's about treating all your grandchildren with equal consideration and keeping your promises. 2 days before Christmas, my father showed up at our door unannounced. "Can we talk?" he asked, looking older than I remembered. I let him in, offering coffee, which he accepted with a grateful nod. "Your mother is heartbroken about all this," he began after settling at our kitchen island. "I imagine it's difficult when your actions have consequences," I replied evenly. He sighed heavily. "Katie, we never meant to hurt the kids. Melissa needs more help, and her children are a bit younger." "Ethan is a year younger than Noah," I interrupted. "And Melissa has a husband who's actually present, unlike her first marriage. The she needs more help excuse doesn't hold water anymore. It's not that simple. Your sister has always been more fragile than you. And I've always been more accommodating, so you figured I'd just keep accepting the scraps of your attention while Melissa got the best of you." He flinched at my bluntness. "That's not fair." "No, it's not fair. Not to me, and certainly not to my children." "What do you want from us, Katie? A formal apology? A scheduled visitation arrangement?" "I want you to acknowledge the favoritism and commit to changing it. Not with words. We've had plenty of those, but with actions." Dad stared into his coffee. "I don't think your mother is capable of seeing it the way you do." "Then I guess we're at an impasse." When he left, I felt a strange mix of sadness and strength. I'd finally voiced what had been obvious for years, and I wouldn't back down, not for the sake of family peace, not for the sake of tradition. Christmas morning was quieter than usual, but filled with genuine joy. The kids opened presents, we made pancakes shaped like snowmen, and no one had to pretend that the grandparents who consistently let them down would suddenly show up with the perfect gift. New Year came and went. In February, I ran into my mother at the grocery store in Winchester Springs, our first encounter in months. She looked startled to see me, then composed herself. "The kids have grown," she remarked. noting the height difference as Emma and Ethan stood beside my cart. They have. Time passes. An awkward silence fell. My mother turned to the children with a brightness that didn't reach her eyes. I was thinking maybe you could visit next weekend. I got some new board games I think you'd like. Before I could intervene, Emma spoke up. Will you cancel again? The directness of the question made my mother blink. Of course not, sweetheart. You always say that, Ethan murmured, barely audible. My mother's face flushed. I've never. She stopped, seeing the look on my face. Well, sometimes things come up. Things come up with Noah and Mia too, Emma observed, but you still do stuff with them. In that moment, hearing my daughter articulate what I'd been trying to explain for months, I felt a surge of pride beneath my heartbreak. She was learning to recognize when she wasn't being treated fairly, a lesson I'd taken decades to learn. We should go, I said gently. It was nice seeing you, Mom. As we walked away, my mother called after me. This has gone on long enough, Katie. You're punishing us for nothing. I turned back, keeping my voice level. I'm not punishing you. I'm teaching my children that they deserve to be treated with consideration and respect, and that includes by their grandparents. Spring arrived, bringing my father's 70th birthday celebration. Melissa organized it, sending formal invitations to the entire extended family. At the bottom of ours was a handwritten note. Please come. It would mean everything to Dad. I considered declining, but ultimately decided to attend. This wasn't about punishing my parents. It was about maintaining boundaries until they recognized the harm they'd caused. The party was held at an upscale restaurant in Millfield, about 30 minutes from our home. When we arrived, the reaction was telling. My parents greeted us with exaggerated enthusiasm, while other relatives watched curiously, clearly aware of the ongoing tension. For most of the evening, we kept to ourselves, making polite conversation with cousins and family friends. The kids stayed close to Derek and me, uncertain in this environment they'd once felt comfortable in. During dessert, my father stood to make a speech, thanking everyone for coming. His eyes lingered on our table. It means the world to have all my family here today, especially those we haven't seen enough of lately. The pointed remark hung in the air, and I felt eyes turn toward us. Later, as people mingled, my Aunt Judith cornered me by the coat check. Your mother tells me you've been keeping the children from them, she said without preamble. Don't you think that's a bit harsh? They're not getting any younger. I haven't kept anyone from anyone, I replied calmly. I've simply asked for equal treatment of my children, and when that didn't happen, I created some distance. Equal treatment? What are you talking about? I realized then that my parents had been spinning a narrative, one where I was the unreasonable daughter keeping beloved grandchildren away for no good reason. Rather than defend myself, I simply asked, how often do you see my parents with Melissa's kids compared to mine? Aunt Judith frowned. Well, they're always posting pictures with Noah and Mia. And when was the last time you saw a picture of them with Katie and Ethan? She opened her mouth, then closed it, thinking. That's my point, I said quietly. As the party wound down, Melissa approached, her expression conciliatory. Mom's really struggling with this rift, Katie. Can't we find a way to fix it? It can be fixed when they acknowledge the double standard and commit to changing it. She sighed dramatically. You're asking them to admit to something they don't believe is true. They love all their grandchildren. Love isn't the issue. Actions are, and their actions have consistently prioritized your children over mine. That's not. She stopped, reconsidering. Okay, maybe they spend more time with my kids, but that's just circumstantial. Is it circumstantial that they've canceled plans with my children 17 times in 12 months, but never once with yours? Is it circumstantial that they remember every soccer game and school concert for Noah and Mia, but can't make time for Katie's science fair or Ethan's baseball games? Something shifted in my sister's expression, the first hint that she might actually be hearing me. I never thought about it that way, she admitted. I just assumed you were too busy for more family time. No, we were just tired of the disappointment. At the end of the night, as we prepared to leave, my mother pulled me aside. This has gone on long enough, she said, her voice low but intense. You're being childish and vindictive. Your father is getting older, and you're robbing him of precious time with his grandchildren. The accusation, so backward, so inverted from reality, made me laugh, a short, bitter sound. You've robbed yourselves of that time, Mom. Every canceled plan, every broken promise, every time you prioritized Melissa's family over mine, those were your choices. I won't stand here and be lectured by my own daughter, she hissed. Everyone can see you're being ridiculous. Mary Jensen even asked me what's wrong with you lately. Did you tell her the truth? Or did you paint me as the villain in your story? Her silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. I gathered my purse. When you're ready to have an honest conversation about how you've treated my children, I'm willing to listen. Until then, we'll continue as we are. As we drove home, Derek reached over to squeeze my hand. You stood your ground. I'm proud of you. In the rearview mirror, I could see Katie and Ethan dozing in the back seat, peaceful and secure. They deserve grandparents who treasured them, who showed up consistently, who made them feel valued. If my parents couldn't be those people, we would be okay without them. 3 days after the birthday party, my father showed up at our front door unannounced. His shoulders were slumped, his expression somber. Can we talk? He asked, shifting uncomfortably on our welcome mat. I hesitated before stepping aside to let him in. The kids were at school, and Derek was at work. Part of me was glad we'd have privacy for whatever this conversation would be. Coffee? I offered mechanically. Please. He settled at the kitchen island, looking around at the family photos on our walls. I busied myself with the coffee maker, the familiar ritual giving me something to focus on besides the tension in the room. When I finally set a mug in front of him, he wrapped his hands around it like he was cold, though it was warm inside. I couldn't sleep after your conversation with your mother at the party, he began. I kept hearing what you said about us canceling on your kids 17 times. 18 now, I corrected. You promised Katie you'd come to her science fair last month. He winced. That's what I've been thinking about. At first, I was defensive. Surely it couldn't be that many times. But then I went through our calendar, and I realized you were right. Even worse, I saw how consistently we've been there for Melissa's children while letting yours down. I sat down across from him, stunned by this unexpected admission. I'm ashamed, he continued, his voice rough. Your mother and I have fallen into patterns we didn't even recognize. Melissa has always demanded attention, making scenes when she doesn't get her way. You, from the time you were small, were our easy child. You adapted, you understood, you forgave. We came to expect that from you, and we took advantage of your good nature. My throat tightened. After months of gaslighting and denial, hearing him acknowledge the truth was overwhelming. Why now? I managed to ask. What changed? Last night, I overheard Melissa on the phone with your mother, planning Noah's birthday party. Your mother promised to take him shopping for new clothes beforehand, then handle the decorations, then stay late to clean up. He shook his head. And I realized she's never once offered to do any of those things for Katie or Ethan's birthdays. We just show up, if we show up at all. He looked directly at me, his eyes watery. I want to fix this, Katie. I want to be the grandfather your children deserve. What about Mom? She's stubborn, but I've told her I'm making changes whether she joins me or not. What kind of changes? Real commitments, standing dates that won't be canceled. He leaned forward earnestly. A fishing trip with Ethan on the first Saturday of every month. An art class with Emma on the third Sunday. No cancellations barring genuine emergency. I studied him, searching for signs of insincerity. The first cancellation, we're back to square one. I understand. That Saturday came the first real test. I spent the morning helping Ethan get ready, quietly bracing myself for the inevitable disappointment. He was subdued as he packed his backpack, carefully arranging his snacks and water bottle. You don't think he'll really come, do you? He asked, his voice small but matter-of-fact. The question broke my heart. I don't know, buddy, but if he doesn't, we'll go fishing ourselves. At exactly 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes before the scheduled pickup time, my father's truck pulled into our driveway. I watched through the window as he stepped out, carrying a brand new tackle box and child-sized fishing rod. Ethan's eyes widened. He came, he whispered, as if saying it too loudly might make his grandfather disappear. My father entered with an air of determination I'd never seen before. He greeted Ethan warmly, showing him the gear he'd bought specifically for their outing. My son's caution slowly gave way to excitement. "I'll have him back by 4, my father told me, his tone serious. "And I'll answer my phone if you call." I nodded, not trusting my voice. As they headed out, I noticed my mother in the passenger seat of the truck, looking uncomfortable but present. The house felt strangely quiet, with Ethan gone. I kept checking my phone, half expecting the call saying they were cutting the trip short. But 4 o'clock came, and with it, my father's truck. Ethan burst through the door, his face flushed with excitement. "Mom, I caught 4 fish. Grandpa let me reel them in myself, and Grandma took pictures, and we had sandwiches by the lake, and..." He continued his breathless account as my parents stood in the doorway. My father looked genuinely happy, while my mother hovered behind him, her expression unreadable. "Thank you for today," I said quietly. My father nodded. "Same time in 2 weeks? We'll be ready." As they drove away, Derek came to stand beside me. "So they actually followed through." "Once," I said. "Let's see if they can manage twice." But they did. 2 weeks later, my father arrived early again, this time to take Emma to an art class. Again, he returned with a beaming child, this one clutching a watercolor painting and chattering about how Grandpa had made the instructor laugh. The pattern continued through 4 more outings: fishing trips, art classes, even a surprise visit to a science museum that had both kids talking for days. Each time, my parents arrived early, stayed engaged, and returned my children happy. On the day of Emma's school concert, I was surprised to see not just my parents in the audience, but Melissa and her family as well. My mother had orchestrated a family outing that, for once, centered on my daughter. After the performance, as the children played in the school courtyard, Melissa approached me. "Mom and Dad are different lately," she remarked, watching our parents interact with all 4 grandchildren. "Dad especially." I nodded. "They're making an effort." "He told me what you said about the 17 cancellations." She winced. "I never realized it was that bad." "Because it never happened to your kids." "I know, and I'm sorry I didn't listen better when you tried to explain." Her voice softened. "You were right about the double standard. I just didn't want to see it because it benefited my kids." "I never wanted them to stop being wonderful grandparents to Noah and Mia," I clarified. "I just wanted them to be equally wonderful to Katie and Ethan." "I understand that now." She hesitated. "Mom's having a harder time adjusting." I watched my mother, who was clearly making an effort, but still gravitated toward Melissa's children. She's trying, in her way. Later that evening, after we'd returned home and put the kids to bed, my mother called. Her voice was stiff, formal. "I wanted to tell you that Emma did very well today. She has a lovely singing voice." "Thank you," I said, surprised by the compliment. There was an awkward pause. "I've been thinking about what you said at your father's birthday party, about us treating the grandchildren differently." I held my breath, waiting. I didn't want to believe it was true. Another pause. "But I've been watching these past few weeks, and you weren't entirely wrong." Coming from my mother, this was tantamount to a full confession. "It wasn't intentional," she continued, "but that doesn't make it less hurtful. I'm sorry, Katie." I gripped the phone tighter. "Thank you for saying that." "Your father says we can't expect to start fresh." Her voice wavered slightly. "But perhaps we can build something better from here." "I'd like that," I said softly. After we hung up, Derek found me sitting on our back porch, staring at the stars. "Everything okay?" My mother just apologized to me. I shook my head in disbelief. I think she actually meant it. He sat beside me, taking my hand. "Do you think they've really changed?" "I think Dad has. Mom is trying, in her way." I rested my head on his shoulder. "But the important thing is that I've changed. I'm not willing to accept crumbs anymore for myself or for our kids." He smiled, pulling me close. "That's the real victory here." And it was. The confrontations, the difficult conversations, the months of standing my ground, all of it had led to this moment of clarity. Teaching my children to expect fair treatment wasn't selfish or demanding. It was essential. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Planning to take both kids to the county fair next weekend, if that's okay with you. No cancellations this time. Promise." Such a simple message, but behind it was a commitment to change. and for the first time in years, I believed it might actually last.